Hey there, and welcome back to another episode of the Idea to Income Photography Podcast. I am your host, Michelle Kuzmick, and I work with busy mamas just like you to navigate the journey of motherhood and entrepreneurship and turn your camera into a profit-generating business that allows you the freedom and income you desire, which ultimately allows you to spend more time with the people who matter the most. One of the big things that I get asked on social media is, what equipment do you recommend starting out? So today I'm going to break it down for you, but before I do that, there's three things I want you to know. First, to be blunt, I am not what I call an equipment whore. I buy what I need to do what I need to do it. I don't get sucked into the latest and the greatest, and I upgrade when it's time, and when I do, that's when I look at the latest and greatest, but only when it's time to upgrade. Number two, it doesn't matter how good your equipment is. I could hand you my camera gear, and if you don't know the basic elements of composition, light, and how to tell your camera to create the image you want, it's not going to matter if you're shooting with a used camera and kit lenses or the best on the market. You're not going to see any difference in your images. And number three, if you are listening to this podcast, I'm assuming it's because you want to make money doing something you love. Here is your draw job moment for today. So if you're doing something else, just turn around and listen for a moment. Your camera and the quality of your images have very little to do with you running a successful photography business. Let that sink in. Having a solid business plan is what makes you money. 80% of photography businesses fail because they fail to plan. The first year I hit six figures in my business, I was still shooting on auto. But because I put more time and effort into the business side than I did the skills side, I was able to make the money I wanted to see. Today, as I was getting ready for this podcast, I was listening to a workshop from my personal business coach. And yes, I do have a business coach, because although I may have figured out what I need to do to run a successful photography business, the MKP Business Academy and teaching is very new to me. Never shy away from getting the support you need when you need it. From my early days as a photographer and now as a business coach, the mentorship and direction I've received from others who are where I want to be has been invaluable. Back to my business coach's workshop this morning, and I want you to write this down because I couldn't say it any better. You get to decide how much money you want to make. You plan to make the money you want. It doesn't just happen. You create a plan and then you get good at executing it. You can't wing it. You can't throw things out on social media and hope for the best. So make sure you write that down. Now, in order to keep things as simple as possible for you, so if you're driving, you don't have to stress this because I'm putting a link in the show notes. michellekuzmick.com/fave is going to have a breakdown of everything that I'm going to tell you today. So let's get to the nitty-gritty. I've read different scenarios about the money it takes to start a photography business, and it can be anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 and up. I'm going to lay out a plan for you today to get you started for under $4,000. So first, you're going to need a camera if you don't have one already. And the Nikon versus Canon debate has been going on for years and years, and it will continue to go on for years and years. I am a Canon girl, so I recommend Canon. I've been shooting Canon since I switched to digital in 2006, and I'm not changing anytime soon. The link to the starter camera in the show notes, it's $399, and it is the Canon Rebel T7. When I started with the Canon Rebel. There were no numbers after it then because it was the very first DSLR. But now I think they're kind of up to the T8i. But starting out, any Rebel is going to be a great starter camera. And again, everything is going to be on the Fave page. And this particular $3.99 is a bundle, and it comes with a kit lens and a battery. Number 2, before you're going to start shooting, because this doesn't come with the kit that's on my page, although you can find kits that come with it, you're going to need a memory card. SanDisk Extreme Pro is pretty much the industry standard, and it's going to run you about $25. You need at least 2 of these. I would also recommend getting an extra battery for your camera. If you purchase a Canon battery, it's going to run you about $80. There are generic versions. Disclaimer, in recent years, when you put a generic version in a Canon camera, you get a warning message. I haven't searched it enough to know if it's really going to mess something up if you use a generic battery, or if it's just a sales ploy from Canon, but do your research before you buy a generic. And that is the basic stuff that you're going to need, and it's going to run you about $550 if you follow those recommendations. You can make that back holding a few sessions to build your portfolio easily. Side note, if you're planning on shooting weddings, you are going to need to double everything. Please, please, please do not show up at a wedding with 1 camera, 1 lens, 1 battery, and 1 memory card. It is way too important of a day. So after you get your base gear, it's time to start thinking about adding an external flash and upgrading your lenses. Fun fact, I break flashes often. My very first magazine shoot, and it still makes me cringe, I bumped into my light pole, I knocked my flash off, and it busted in front of 5 paid models and the editor of the magazine, not to mention the general manager of the hoity-toity hotel. So I don't spend a lot of money on flashes. Many photographers are going to debate this. Light is one of the most important factors in any image. However, for what I need, the Yongnuo YN600EX RT2, and again, it's in the show notes, is the perfect speed light for what I need. And it's roughly $140 versus the Canon version, which last time I checked, it was about $500. If I was still shooting a lot of weddings, I would invest in the Canon 600EX RT speed light because the recycle time is much faster, and you need that for moments for like the first kiss and cake cutting and things like that. But for what I need, the Yongnuo is perfect. After you get all of that into place and you're feeling really good, I would get a very basic prime lens. And what a prime lens is, if you don't know, is it's a lens that has a fixed focal length. And generally, it's going to allow you to shoot at a lower aperture, and it's going to give you crisper images. And it's going to be much better than any kit lens that you're going to have. The kit lens is the lowest aperture that you can normally get is about 4.5, with the one I recommend, which is the Canon EF 50mm 1.4. You can go as low as 1.4 in aperture. And when you make the change from the kit lens at 4.5 to a prime lens at 1.4, it is huge. It's going to make a big difference in the quality of your images. The Canon 50mm 1.4, you can get it for less than $400. So that gives you a solid plan of gear to start with for roughly about $1,000. And I want you to know there is nothing wrong with buying any of this used. There are a lot of reputable companies. B&H Photo, who I get most of my equipment from, has a refurbished division. Amazon also has a refurbished division, but I haven't used them personally. So if you want to start with more intermediate equipment or jump right into what I use, that's also included at michellekuzmic.com/faves, which is going to be in the show notes. People also ask me about the new mirrorless cameras that have been released in the last, say, 5 years. Last year, I upgraded upgraded to the Canon R6, and I can't say enough good things about it. In the 23 years I've been a photographer, this is the one piece of equipment that came out that has simply wowed me. I'm not saying that you need to start at that point, but if you want to start at a higher end, I would definitely go mirrorless. And again, that's on my faves page. Now, if you're a math person, you might be thinking that I mentioned spending roughly $4,000 to get started, and I've only laid out $1,000 plan. So what else do you need? This is a shameless plug, but I want you to hear my heart. You need to get help. Whether it's my coaching program, Idea to Income, a digital course, or whatever, invest in something with someone who's gone before you to get you up and running. It is going to save you so much time, and in the long run, you'll be able to make money quicker. And because you can see a profit sooner, you're going to be less likely to burn out and give up because you're feeling overwhelmed, and you're not going to fall into that 80% of photographers that fail category. I'm also going to put the link to the coaching program, which is michellekuzmic.com/idea to income in the show notes, along with the faves page. So other than help, what else do you need? Well, I'd say you need a budget of about $1,000 for things like business licenses, insurance. You're going to have a subscription to Adobe Lightroom, and then basic incidentals your first year. None of this has to be done all at once, but I like to keep things real and give you the best advice I have to help you ultimately reach your goal of a profitable business that allows you the freedom and income you desire. I want you to be able to start living life on your own terms as quickly as possible. If you don't have already have one, the other $1,000 that I budgeted in the $4,000 was for a laptop, because you're going to need one of those to process your images. So here is where it gets real, and here are your action items for this particular episode. If you are considering starting a photography business, or if you have one and you've been dabbling and want to start making real money, take about 20 to 30 minutes to journal these questions for yourself. If you're a new listener, I am really big on journaling to help you get clear on what you want and ultimately create your plan. Here's your questions. Number 1, my biggest dream is to. Number 2, how will having a photography business help me to achieve that dream? 3, what is holding you back from getting started? And number 4, what is really holding you back from getting started? Sit with those questions for a while and see what comes up for you. Second action item from today's episode: if you need equipment or you want to upgrade what you're using, michellekuzmic.com/faves. Again, it's in the show notes for your recommendations, and you can start doing your own research to see what fits best for you. And lastly, and this is not a shameless plug, I want you to go to michellekuzmic.com/idea to income, and I want you to scroll about halfway down the page to where it says exactly what's inside. Remember, at the beginning of this episode, I said that your camera and the quality of your images have very little to do with you running a successful photography business. Having a solid business plan is what is going to make you money. 80% of businesses, let this sink in, fail because they fail to plan. I want you to use the modules that I have listed there to give you a base for what you need to start creating your own business plan. Again, in the show notes, I've included the link to my faves page, my coaching program, Idea to Income, and I'm also going to add a link to submit any questions you might have about this episode. I respond to all personally within 24 hours. I've covered a lot today, and I've done it very quickly. So if you have any questions, please reach out. That is it. I will see you next week. It doesn't matter what equipment you start with, just get started. I'll be cheering you on.